I'm Anna Runkle, also known as the Crappy Childhood Fairy. I've had a lot of comments lately about the question of staying in touch as an adult with parents who abused you or who continue to treat you badly. And one commenter in particular had a really good question. She wrote in and said that when her mom's birthday comes up, she feels like she should acknowledge it, or else she feels like a bad daughter, in her own words, because of societal pressures and guilt trips. And it's true, there is a social expectation that we should acknowledge things like birthdays for close relatives, especially mothers. And in fact, it's seen as selfish by some people not to acknowledge this kind of thing. You're supposed to at least call and say happy birthday, right? And a lot of us with damaged relationships with family members get tangled up on these kinds of decisions, not knowing what will be more harmful to us and to them as well. If we call and say happy birthday, or if we fail to say happy birthday. So I just want to talk about the word guilt. I see it as one word for two very different emotional phenomena, in English anyway. And some languages might have more nuance. But in English, one meaning of guilt means kind of a artificial state of mind that's put on us. We're made to feel guilty, presumably unfairly by other people. We're using this sense of the word when we talk about a guilt trip or someone guilting you. That's one meaning. But there should be a different, more specific word for guilt when we're referring to that sick feeling when we know we've done something wrong. And these two kinds of guilt are both real, they're both miserable, and to heal each kind of guilt, there are two very different paths. But it helps to know which kind you're dealing with. And this is a good question. How do we know when the guilt we feel is just overly self-critical or the product of social pressures that don't really apply to our situation versus guilt that we feel because we're actually doing something wrong? And this kind of discernment is exactly what gets messed up in childhood PTSD. Out of guilt, we rush around and try to make things nice that are not even ours to fix. And through the same misplaced guilt, we put up with horrible treatment because of a vague feeling that the abuse is somehow our fault. But this same vagueness means we also sometimes have a big blind spot about the hurts that we're causing others. And we get confused why people seem mad at us. And if we have no other way of knowing whether our guilt is well-founded because we did hurt people or just some form of overcompensation for misplaced responsibility, we can end up over-giving or just giving up. So first of all, it's really common for people with childhood PTSD to find this question fraught, whether to have some kind of relationship with the adults who hurt us as kids or whether to just cut them off. And if we have a relationship, do we try to be good daughters and sons and show up but keep them emotionally at a distance? Or do we try to talk with them about what happened? Do we forgive them? Do we pretend nothing happened and just fake it, right? Have you struggled with this? And if we don't let ourselves be close with family members, will a feeling of guilt creep in after they're gone and when it's too late to heal the relationship? These are important questions, and they're worth exploring. So to answer this, I'll just tell you now, there's no cookie-cutter answer, but there are some guiding principles you can use as you decide how you will relate to the people who harmed you in the past. It's understandable and so easy to think that if they would go to counseling or if they would acknowledge what they did or if they would apologize for what they did, then you would be okay. And in some ways, this might be true, at least a little bit. If a parent is honest about what they did and gets it, then the crazy bubble of denial that surrounds everything that happens in the family is burst, at least, and just being real becomes possible. But this kind of thing is super rare. Even when people try to apologize, real apologies that hit the spot, they're very, very rare. If you ever receive such an apology, all I can say is do your best to let it in. But here's the thing. Other people's apologies are not guaranteed to give you peace. And even good apologies can bring a flood of new emotions and bring up stuff within you that you've been holding in. Abuse and neglect are never the child's fault, but at a certain point, some of us maybe started to internalize that negativity that was pointed at us and maybe developed a tendency towards hurtful behaviors of our own. And this can be so painful to face that a lot of people never do. And that's exactly why getting apologies from parents is so rare. It's hard to face when we've hurt people. So our biggest opportunity for peace and healing as adults comes from this focus on the way that we've handled the way we were hurt. And first of all, if you feel like you can't see family members, that's fine. Don't force it. But if you're choosing to stay connected, it's worth asking, has the past made us bitter or unreasonable or stressful to be around? Have we gone out of our way to punish family members, even the ones who have done their best to make it better? Has our pain made us a nuisance at family gatherings, making a scene or making things all about us? I've done it. We didn't ask for childhood PTSD, but once we have it, we are sometimes triggering for other people. I know that in the past, I made life harder than it had to be for some other people. And maybe you relate to that. This is the part we actually get to clean up. Even if our part is a small thing in comparison to what your parent did, and even if your parent has never apologized and never will, how nice to know that there's at least one thing that can change about this painful family situation. And you never know how others might respond to the change. Maybe they'll change too, which isn't super likely, but sometimes our own changes can cause the dynamic to change, and then anything is possible. I'm not saying you should sign up for continued abuse. If that's happening, just get out of there. And if the situation is such that you can't be there without getting triggered and starting up some yucky family dynamic, it might be best to wait until your healing has progressed enough that you can maintain inner peace around things that are said and done at family gatherings. You being calm inside is where you have choices. So don't push this before you're ready. If you're confused about how to handle relations with your family, you can get more clarity using the daily practice that I teach to get all the fears and resentments about the past and your role in it and other people's role in it out of the hamster wheel mess in your head and onto paper, so that you have more freedom and clarity of mind and you can take smart and healthy actions towards your own healing, whatever they may be. Because guilt can be toxic when it comes from a place of confusion. And you can't just ignore it, because sometimes guilt is your friend. It tells you with a gut feeling that there's something in your life that has fallen short and needs your attention. It's the wisdom in you speaking to you. Sometimes it's just one or two things you need to clean up, and then a whole lot of other stuff becomes clearer to you. You're not walking around in a, is it me, is it them, sort of cloud of confusion. With less fear and resentment, we not only heal the brain dysregulation from childhood PTSD, but we begin to grow truly free. We're free to leave. We're free to get close. We're free to fight or free to forgive. We get to make mistakes and we get to become ourselves. So get that paper out, and if you need some guidance on how to do it, you'll find that, as well as a link to my full course on healing childhood PTSD, in links in the description section below. And if you like this video, just hit that thumbs up button if you would, and be sure to subscribe to this channel. I'll see you soon.